But when you get closer to her, you watch the advocacy work begin. Judy has a great ability to sit, like I said, meet somebody right where they are, but to listen, and to listen without prejudice, to listen without bias as to what the conclusion maybe should be or what that person should be doing. She's willing to kind of listen and explore and find out more, and as a result is able to bring a lot of fresh information to the table where leadership decisions could be made. Her high point, she'll talk about the Global Women's Leadership Forum, but in the years preceding that, she also led a U.S. Women's Leadership Development Task Force and a Global Women's Leadership Development Task Force that did all of the unearthing of the realities around the ministry and how we needed to think differently and act differently.
Welcome to the Eden Podcast, where we true the verse of Genesis 3:16, and we discover that God didn't curse Eve or Adam or limit woman in any way. We've asked a special friend and colleague of Judy's, Andrea Budczinski, to now say a few words. Andrea has been, until just a few months ago, the Vice President of Global Leadership Development at Cru for 20 years.
Well, pictures tell 1,000 words, don't they? And from everyone, from Judy, from your youngest years when you served as editor of those magazines to your current day, when Judy enters a room, the smile, you meet her, she's hospitable, she's friendly, she's warm, and she extends that to everybody that she meets. So there's not a place she could set foot in our ministry around the world where she would not be warmly welcomed with a big hug and the feeling of being a sister, of somebody who is willing to meet you right where you are. There are three words that I think of when I think of Judy. And I'm going to start with sort of the most distant to the closest, if I could. When I was new staff or early in my staff years, Judy to me was a role model. She was a woman who was flourishing in her giftedness, operating as editor of an award-winning magazine, as Joy explained. But my first impression of Judy was from her book, Old Maid is a Dirty Word. When you hear her story, she was single for a while before she met Steve and they got married. And the idea is, if you're a single woman on staff with Cru and you showed up at an event, there was always this sense that, you should be looking for your mate. In fact, our Institute of Biblical Studies was known as I've Been Seeking, the place where you could find a mate. So when she laid that out, that old maid is a dirty word and that God calls you to singleness, to use those years for his glory, it was just a welcome message. So I would say my first introduction to Judy was as a role model. But when you get closer to her, you watch the advocacy work begin. Judy has a great ability to sit, like I said, meet somebody right where they are, but to listen, and to listen without prejudice, to listen without bias as to what the conclusion maybe should be or what that person should be doing. She's willing to kind of listen and explore and find out more, and as a result is able to bring a lot of fresh information to the table where leadership decisions could be made. Her high point, she'll talk about the Global Women's Leadership Forum, but in the years preceding that, she also led a U.S. Women's Leadership Development Task Force and a Global Women's Leadership Development Task Force that did all of the unearthing of the realities around the ministry and how we needed to think differently and act differently. And I could sit in the meetings with her, and watch that spunkiness, that desire to make a difference show up in the best possible ways. Couldn't we think about this differently? And what is the opportunity cost if our women are not mobilized for the gospel? In the God-given gifts that they have, could we not be a better movement if everybody is mobilized? And it was a pleasure to sit at the table with her for a good time, a good number of events and initiatives. The Global Women's Leadership Forum, 450 women, 90 countries. I worked some of the back end of that conference, and we learned all kinds of things. Like women in other countries often don't take their husbands' names. But all of the names that were given to us by our male colleagues were their husbands' names. And so here we are sitting up late at night trying to figure out, does this name match this name? That being said, that opening night, we walked in and sat at round tables just like you are. And the Thai women welcomed us with some native dances, beautiful worship. And all of a sudden, these 450 women who are there from these 90 countries opened their mouths to praise the Lord. And I'm telling you, there was not a goosebump-free piece of flesh in the room, because we were experiencing something that we had never experienced before. Even last year, I was at a conference and the woman came up to me and she goes, "Do you remember meeting me in 2004 in Thailand?" And the legacy of that conference continues. It did light fires. It lit fires in all of us to be able to bring our best to the Lord and to allow him to use us in ways that we maybe didn't think were possible previously. 20 years later, we've seen a great advance in the number of women who are willing to serve the Lord with leadership gifts or operational gifts, however the Lord's gifted them. What Judy has brought to us is the willingness to put it before the Lord and say, how can you use me? What would you like me to do? And then follow him wholeheartedly into that. Advocate for women, for sure. Ally in working with men as well. So the advocacy kind of goes both ways, because Judy's heart is big, and it's big for Jesus, and it's bigger that Jesus would be famous everywhere he is named. And so in that sense, the elimination of these barriers that get put up sometime became a real sweet spot. Or how do we create a great environment for how men and women work together for the glory of God and to reveal God in ways that maybe our culture is not able to see? The third word I would use to describe Judy is encourager. You cannot leave a conversation with her without feeling better about the situation that you've just confessed to her, or feeling believed in at a deep level. This is probably where she is most deeply loved and appreciated across the movement. She has loved us well. Her ability to listen, to understand, to empathize with others is perhaps her greatest gift. She comes alongside and is able to offer words of wisdom and words of strength to those of us who might need a nudge, a hug, a kick, or words of truth. She sees the beauty in each person, the beauty that God has put there. And I love that about you, Judy. I want to say thank you, Judy, for your heart for the Lord, for living open-handedly before him and offering all of who you are to him. I want to say thank you for your heart for us, for those of you, those of us who have served in his name alongside you. We have been blessed. We're blessed with your belief in us, we're blessed by your encouragement, and we're deeply blessed by your love. Congratulations, my friend.
True 316 Foundation is the home of the Eden Podcast. Join us for $3.16 a month or more. Let's true the verses on the key passages on women and men. Go to true316.com/partner. True 316 is strengthening and encouraging many, and we're getting stories every day of lives changed through our ministry. We're the home of the Eden Podcast, and we're getting the word out that God didn't curse Eve or Adam or limit woman in any way. Our volunteer help is wonderful, and we grow stronger with each new true partner who gives to the True 316 Foundation so that we can cover the costs to do the technical work of the Eden Podcast, to coordinate our True School workshops like the 2-week Eden workshop on Genesis 2 and 3, and to make the True 316 Foundation function in its outreach to scholars and students around the world. You can give now with a one-time gift. And better still, you can join now and become a monthly donor. We call our monthly donors our true partners. Please join now by going to true316.com/partner.